We have launched India's our first platform, which is scalable and modular. We call it EV12. This platform has been designed based on our almost 30 million kilometers of experience globally. I would say 30 million miles, which is kind of 50 million kilometers globally. And also in India, we have done close to about 9 million kilometers with our 115 buses already. So all these learnings have gone in to build up this platform. We have built the platform modular and scalable so that you can adapt it in multiple segments and models. So for example, the E1 bus, which we have unveiled in Paris in Europe, has the same EV architecture as EV12. So the 650 volt architecture, the powertrain, the battery pack, the power electronics is going to be the same. So it's a global platform. So that's what we want to bring it and also give it to Indian customers. It's also scalable. So we can make a 150 kilometer bus to a 300 kilometer bus. We can actually, through our unique double gun charging system, we can actually run about 500 kilometers a day. So that's the scalable portion of it. And then modular, because the same architecture we can do to the low floor. We have a standard floor bus as part of it. So we have configured in such a way that we'll be able to scalable and modular in this. We have also launched Switch Ion, which is a connected mobility solution as part of the EV12 platform. That connected mobility solution gives a lot of value-added services to the operators, drivers, and the complete ecosystem, connecting the chargers, connecting the bus, and then giving you predictive maintenance, over-the-air updates. We have multiple functions going to be built on this platform over a period of time. I think you alluded to a very right question, I would say, because a lot of traction we are seeing in electric bus market, particularly due to the central government's push on transforming public transport into electric. If you look at Switch, our aim is net zero. We want to be a net zero company. We want to work on net zero, and we want to democratize zero carbon mobility, where we want common people to use public transport in a more sustainable way. So this perfectly fits in what government want to do, what as industry we want to do. Everything perfectly fits in. The CSL tender, the tender by multiple STUs has helped it. Why? You have to see the background. Now government has announced that in public they will phase out more than 15-year-old buses. So that puts a lot of STUs to replenish a lot of buses. Today, with the GCC model of running pay per kilometer, actually it helped the STUs to come out of various, what I will say, economic pressures they had to handle the viability gap between collection and the expenses. So this really helps. Today, if you look at the EV's long-term 10-year contracts, it makes win-win for STUs, for the central government's vision, and the industry how to partner it. Now, there are also some STUs who want to buy it. So I'm seeing a lot of traction. In fact, the bus adoption on electric is actually one of the trend we are talking about. Now CSL is talking about next big tenders. A lot of traction is happening. So that's a good news. For us, we had entered last financial year with a 65 order in hand. And now when we entered this financial year, we have about 600 orders in hand. So that's about 10x growth. So that's the traction. The first set of buses of EV12 have already been produced, almost 150 of them. And we are, as we speak, we are soon going to launch in one of the cities in the south. So we are seeing a lot of traction. I would say from the base of EV platform, we have about 600 orders, and we are adding more to it. What I would say the happiest part for me is it's not just STUs. We have one order for an employee transport as well. So about 100 plus vehicles we are going to supply to employee transport and private operators out of this, which is a significant breakthrough, I would say. So there is a lot of traction coming on this platform, And what we offer is a complete total cost of ownership benefit to the customers. So we don't just give a bus, we work on the charging ecosystem, we work on the connectivity, AMC, on the life cycle of the complete bus for a 10-12 years, and we make them viable to them, to our operators, because finally if they are successful, we are successful, and so on and so forth. So we'll have to make our partners, who are our fleet operators, STUs, private operators, successful economically in EV. That's our motive, and we do that by looking at total cost of ownership. So we'll have to look at what we are taking globally. I think it's very important. If you look at the EV architecture and the technology, we are taking globally. But the supply chain is happening in India. So the design, development, architecture is common between them. It is designed jointly. But the supply chain is happening from India. So the supply chain advantage is the most important in cost. The second one is the common parts like steering, suspension have been taken from the Ashok Leyland staple. So Switch India has an advantage of bringing in global technology, at the same time adapting Indian cost structure through Ashok Leyland's buying power and Ashok Leyland's presence in India. So that we are taking both the advantage, and the EV12 has all these advantage into it, and that's why we are able to give a total cost of ownership on the price of the bus. The second is the total cost of ownership is not just the bus. It has charging, it has many things. So we actually, because of the scalable and modular architecture, for multiple application, we don't give the same bus. For example, some of the private operators which we are giving, we don't give exactly the same battery. We look at their complete life cycle of the bus. Maybe 1-2 buses may be of 189 kilowatt hour, and the other one may be of 340 kilowatt hour, depending upon application. So you optimize. So we don't have, like some of the competitor, a standard bus which fits everywhere. Then it makes difference. So those small little things, optimizing charger, our double gun charging actually makes really benefit, and our NMC battery with a long life cycle with our partners helps the life cycle of the battery changeover period and all that in a longer one. So we work on a total cost of ownership on every element of a life cycle to make it viable to our customers. See, that's a good question. So we are one of the most localized Indian manufacturer in bus or any segment we are in. So if you look at battery cell, is not made in India. For any of us, any competition or anybody, cell is still being imported. With PLI of advanced chemistry, cell ACC PLI, Government of India is trying to get that into the country. When that happens, we will start buying cells in the country. So the cell is almost 30 to 40% of the cost of the system. So if you look at us on our bus, which we have recently type approved, we have got a FAME certificate where almost, unless you are above 51% or most of the components, EV components are not localized, you will not qualify. So for example, our partner Dana makes the complete motor at their Pune facility. So they are our partners in supplying motor systems. Similarly, our power electronics, cable, connector, everything is sourced locally, and we have partners who will do it. So and the battery pack is assembled in our own factory in Switch facility at Ennore, Chennai. So look at it, basically the cell and the module is the one which you will get it right now, and when it is localized, we'll be ready. The bus market actually about 15-20% is only STU, remaining 80% is private bus operators. So without their involvement, you can't have EV adoption going in the country. So it's important that they get in. So how they will get in right now, we'll have to have traction in the market. So government have intervened in state transport, requested them to adapt electric mobility in their government use, and slowly that's what is percolating. So now what's happening is the government discussion on STU getting converted to EV happened like 3.5 years back. There's a lot of discussion happened 3-4 years back. So now we are seeing the fruits of it. Now similarly for the private operator to adapt to EV, discussion is happening now. So we won a small tender, but I'm sure everybody in the industry is working towards it. They are now inquiries started coming in the private segment. So that means private segment is conscious of the fact of the diesel price hike, the economic viability of EV. They are seeing the buses running. For example, we are running for about 3 years now, so they are getting confidence that it's no more new technology, but it's a proven commercial technology. So the adoption is started coming there. We should also look at the fact that the government is also mulling around how to handle the city transport or a public transport, because they are also coming up with new models of, let's say, private participation in the public runner. So there are a lot of innovation happening at the space, and I believe that this is the space which we have to watch in. And we are open. As you know that we have already formed an entity called Mobility to run the pay per kilometer EMAS model as part of the Switch, what I would say, the family. And is a model which we will use it for all pay per kilometer, and we will try to bring in a lot of value creation to customers on multiple ways of serving them on a pay per mile, either pay per mile of a bus or pay per mile with a complete driver plus the servicing plus and so on. So we have multiple models created to it. So I would say a lot of innovation will happen. It has started to happen. It's going to be at least 2-3 years, going to be a lot of experimentation in this sector will happen. We'll have to learn through it, and we are prepared to handle such new innovations. I think you had a very right question, because charging infrastructure is one of the important puzzle to be resolved before adoption of electric mobility. It's not going to happen that you keep the charging infrastructure point open and you expect EVs to adapt faster. But having said that, what I see in India, that puzzle is still being discussed, but adoption is happening faster. I think that's where some of the things which we have to learn is that the charging happens almost 80% at home for most of the personal vehicles. But the 20% makes important, because that 20% is the deciding factor for buying the vehicles. So that's very, very, very important factor for a personal vehicle. So personal vehicle adoption will hugely depend on charging infrastructure. One of the problem India right now has is still mulling out what should be the charging. Like Europe has decided CCS and gone ahead. In India, we are still discussing how to do a low-cost AC charging, how to handle DC charging, and so on and so forth. But it is genuine, because India is a very complex market, unlike Europe or anything else, because India has multi-model. You have huge two-wheelers, you have three-wheelers, you have four-wheelers, whereas in Europe, it's just, or Europe or US, it's just the four-wheelers and commercial vehicles. So here, I think what India is doing is right. Debate about what we need to do to address two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler and commercial vehicles, another segment, but we need to do it faster. We have to be conscious that we are too much debate will land nowhere, and we need to conclude and move forward, because you can't satisfy everybody in the world. So, so if that happens, I think it will further help adoption. I think government has done everything on FAME to what I would say, tweak it to the market requirements, segment requirements, such that adoption goes high. I would give huge credit to government on that, because they have been open enough, discussing with industry, discussing with stakeholders, where it is FAME 1 to FAME 2, FAME 2 to revision, what happened last year. I think it's all in the right direction, and it helped EV adoption in every segment, I would say. And if they can do some influence on the charging infrastructure and take a veto, I think we will be going faster. See, I think the standardization is to be becoming open. So if you are not standard, you can't be open, right? So we should finalize a standard for charging, particularly fast charging and AC charging quickly, and then give it open to everybody to install chargers, because not only my bus, my LCV, but even competitors' bus and LCV should come to the same charging and do it. That is the intent of standard. if that's the reason it's important. Otherwise, each manufacturer will have the protocol and then it will go into multiple direction. The investment needed will not pay return back. We all know that the charging infrastructure needs a huge investment. That investment needs to pay back to the any investor who is doing it, whether it is government or non-government or anybody. So if you have to make it viable, multiple cars needs to, or multiple methods of mobility needs to adapt that quickly. So it is the right direction. That's the reason we are in fact promoting open protocol for charging, and we'll be happy to share with anybody and use anybody's competitive charging infrastructure, because there is no competition according to me in EV, to be frank, because the market itself is going so huge. Actually, collaboration will help, and collaboration is the way time now, because the market is enough for everybody to play a role to get into EVs. If you look at Ashok Leyland's network, globally it's more than 51 countries. So that our advantage is we have a channel reach to reach out to many of them. We have already started getting inquiries from Southeast Asia, Africa, Europe, and some of the developed countries like Australia, New Zealand, everything. So we are working with multiple countries. Right now, the whole focus, I would say, is India, because the India itself, we have huge opportunities and we need to address that market. So going forward, definitely we are looking at exporting from our India factory as well as from our UK factory. You all know that we have done a groundbreaking in Spain, Valladolid, and left-hand drive markets, we will do it from the Spanish factory. So we have a strategy how to handle these requirements. There are a lot of FTAs going between countries, between India. So the strategy on FTA and others also would play a vital role in how we invest, how we leverage the investments between the countries. And having said that, finally, I think India will play a role on supply chain in the whole group, particularly because India will take a lot of supply chain advantage globally. See, first is our switch headquarter is based out of UK. While most of the volume and the traction is happening in India, we are a global company headquartered in UK. You know that we have merged the Optare and the AL assets of EV and formed a global company. So, so we are a global company. It is, I would not orient it towards an Indian or a UK or a European or any other one. We will address each of these markets. While the technology is common, if you look at the Switch E1 bus, the bus is designed to meet the European requirement. If you look at our metro ductor or a metro city, it is designed to meet the UK customer requirement. So the product will serve the narrative of the customer in the particular market. The technology will be the one which we will scale and modular and take advantage of supply chain volumes and across all of that. So we are very particular. We will address the particular country needs through the product, and the technology which is not seen by the customers will be the one we will use it globally to make sure that we give the best in the and use the advantage of both. And hence we don't see any disadvantage. In fact, we see more advantage by such strategy of global and addressing all these customers. India will be a primary market. For example, out of 600, 700 deliveries planned, 600 deliveries planned this year, about 450 to something 500 will happen from India. So India will be a primary market because of what's happening by the government and what's happening in the state. UK, we have some challenges because of the funding, the zebra funding delay there. What's happening in the government there is a slight delay happening there, but having said that, we believe that it will come back and we'll be able to build up traction. Spain is going to be for the future. We are building a factory for the future. We are getting some order tractions now. We'll have to decide how will we strategize and scale up there. So we are very clear that the existing facilities in UK, in India will be the scale up, and any new additions will be our futuristic plan. See, right now, you rightly said, the geopolitical, what I would say, changes what's happening in the last, after the war is significant. It will be very difficult to predict what will happen in the future. So we are planning scenarios. So we, in strategy, we do scenario planning. So our original plan was to do something in Spain and so much volume, so much. With what's happening in the war, with change in energy crisis, how it's happening between Europe and Russia, and how they are going to work around, we'll have to have some 2-3 scenario plannings, obviously. So it's not going to be like one strategy get in. We will have to work on multiple scenario planning, and we have already started doing scenario planning. Which scenario to activate depending upon how the geopolitics and things go on, we will definitely, but we are well prepared on various scenarios, what will happen around. Actually, there are a lot of what I would say questions around safety on many things. I think I would say that two fronts. One is EV safety and overall automobile safety. I think we'll have to look at complete auto safety, and then we are looking at EV safety. Okay. So India on overall safety as well, we're lagging behind. While we have gone ahead in emission, I think we have to still globally catch up on standards on passenger safety, let's say, even in personal cars. The minister is talking about it already, getting into one, and the good thing is the Indian manufacturers are the one who are leading in giving safety, even though there are no standards to it. So it's our DNA that we are providing, thinking more safety than just looking at the market. So that's the good news of it. On the EV safety, so let's look at what government is doing, what Switch is doing. Switch, we have 3 levels of safety, in fact 4 levels of safety I would say. We have a very safety logic built at module level. We have built a safety logic at pack level, and we have an active cooling system to ensure that there is no thermal runaways, even if it is, that's the connectivity helps in. Even if you park the bus and come out, we are 24 hours round the clock monitoring temperatures, and if there is anything, immediately the cooling system will activate and make sure that the active cooling supports the battery, what we are doing. We also have FTAS, which is fire detection alarm system. We also give option of FTSS, which is suppression system as part of our buses. So we have like 3-4 levels of safety. Having said that, we have to go a long way, because these applications will decide how much safety we are covering. Most of the incidences we have seen, we'll have to look at design aspect, testing aspect, and the application scenario of. So our advantage is wherever we are in, we have active cooling systems. So that reduces a huge risk of thermal safety, because one is of course quality. So with Ashok Leyland proven quality standards over a period of time, large amount of testing we do on our products to make sure we meet safety conditions, and our 4 level of safety design and testing which has gone into, and our connectivity is going to end to end do the best in safety. Having said that, there will be some application cases which we have not understood, which we will learn over a period of time. The good portion is India has so much engineers, software, both in knowledge. We'll be able to quickly learn and fix it. I'm sure whatever the EV incidences happen, some engineers would have worked around the clock to find a solution to get it done. So this is going to be a learning curve for the industry, for the engineers, for consumers, and I would say the complete ecosystem, which we have to go through to make sure that where we want to reach. See, we are already started working on LCV. I think it's publicly available that we are working on Dost and Bada Dost platform. Both of them are a very successful platform in the Ashok Leyland stable, and Switch will electrify them to start with. But going forward, we are also talking about developing a ground sub platform, both for LCV, both for India as well as for the Europe. So we are working on multiple options, but I would speak about it more when it comes. All that we have said is we will enter LCV market within this financial year. Now, how do we scale up from next year? the whole strategy is being worked out, and we will have a separate session on LCV when we are into the market. See, there are some phases of adoption, like what we are seeing in two-wheeler, three-wheeler adoption has gone substantially higher. Fleet cars are adopting faster. Personal cars will make more time. Similarly, in commercial vehicle, what we see is the first two areas which will adapt faster with small commercial vehicle and the bus segment. So these two are going to play a vital role in the initial adoption. Then the other areas, how it will be up to 7.5 ton in the load category, I believe it will make some viable sense. Above 7.5 ton, we need to look at how the economics work, application. So we'll have to look at application, we'll have to look at things. For example, e-commerce players, mid-mile, sorting center to sorting center to development center, maybe a less than 7.5 ton category vehicle will perfectly fit in. We'll have to see the life cycle. As long as it runs 150 to 200 kilometers a day, it will make economic sense. So we'll have to look at adoption at multiple segments. The work is on, and we are already working out a strategy. But we believe these two other segments quickly will focus on next 2 to 3 years, and hence we are more commercializing these areas while we are doing R&D in other areas. So look at what happened to auto industry. Auto industry started 100 years back, right? Somehow India lost that auto industry race. Till recently, some technology will be launched in some other country. India will adapt it after 5 years, 10 years, and so on. Now, with India looking at what is the GDP growth, looking at what is the aspiration as a country we want to reach, we will reach third largest economy in few years. Now, if that is so, we can't be still adapting something what it is. So, and if we want to do a Atmanirbhar Bharat, then we need to actually do technology development in India. Now, what is the opportunity? Opportunity is EV. EV brings in new technology. Are we late? We may be late a year or two, but are we too late? I would say no. So, luckily, Indian government, industry, and the society is partnering in all this together. There is no other, what I would say, period in my career of 30 years where I have seen government is saying we want EV, industry is investing in EV, and consumers are adopting EV, whether it is state government or central government. So it is, I would say, the most golden period of auto industry happening in India. So India will adapt faster. Now, to me, India will become the third largest EV market by 2030. I can assure you by numbers. Now, if that is so, then there is no reason that India will not play a vital role. Having said that, we have to do a lot of work. I did one simple calculation of how much EV battery they need in Europe. So they need about like 2000 gigawatt hour of battery if EV adoption, what Europe has committed to happen in 2030, let's say. Now they have plans to do about 900 gigawatt before 2030 to install capacity. So where will the remaining 1000 come from? So India has to think not just the battery manufacturing for Indian use, but unless you think how can we manufacture and take global market, I think that is the next step we will do in the next 10 years. So I think if we can do that, then we will become a very important player of supply chain of EV globally. Software, embedded system. India is what we should look at how do we develop that ecosystem of software, electronics, embedded system, and motors, motor controllers, manufacturing of power electronics. I think that's a very, very key area apart from EV or battery, I would say, we need to look at. I think already PLI has kick-started this initiative. I was told 10 players, more than the PLI application, are interested in putting a viability business case for cell manufacturing in India. I think we need to be a little bit more aggressive there. Here, I think the question is EV adoption needs large investment, whether it is buses or anything, you need large investment. So we should look at how do we call EV as a priority sector lending for either industry or for adoption for somebody. How can we get more funding to manufacturing, adoption? For example, if I have to put 5,000 buses, we need 5,000, minimum 5,000 to 8,000 crore to capitalize the buses into a system, right? So that's a large money. If you talk about 50,000 buses, then actually you need 70,000 crores. Where it will come from? Similarly, if we talk about 1,000 gigawatt of our factory, you need billions of dollars to do that, right? So I think now we need to look at how to fund them rather than just saying how to make them. See, let's look at the two segments we are in. The bus segment is adapting pretty fast. We are looking at, let's say by 2025, we'll have about a market size of about 10,000 EVs. I would say we will be happy if we are about 30% plus market share in that. And similarly, by 2030, we are looking at 40-50,000 EV market, yearly market share growth in EV. And if you are very similar in that segment, we are fine. So anything beyond 30% market share is too costly to acquire, and anything lower than that will be too low for us to look at sustainable in the market. So everybody is going to have a nice place. So if you are having a very reasonable market share profitably, I think that's where it's more sustainable for a business to grow on. That's what we will look at the bus segment. On the LCV segment is substantial growth is expected around it. We are looking at, let's say, at least close to between 30 to 50,000 would be our sale on LCV per annum. That's what we are looking at by end of the decade. But it all will depend on how the adoption curve in LCV will take in, because LCV adoption is not yet experimented in the market. I believe it will be a very good EV adoption, which will make economic sense. If that so happen, we will have a very reasonable 20-30% market share to get into it, and we will continue to work on such aspirations over a period of time. Switch is a net zero committed company. So we are, like India is committed to be net zero by 2070. It's a very profound statement. We are saying we will work on net zero, and in fact our factory in Leeds in UK last year is certified as net zero because we bought carbon credits, and we have already done valuation of what is the carbon footprint of our manufacturing in India, and we will continue to strive to achieve net zero in all our operations. In our factory, in our operations, for example, the Bangalore, we are planning to deliver buses in the coming months. As per planning, we are already starting off around 80% renewable to charge those buses to start with. So there are a lot of planning happening around how do we become net zero in terms of energy, in terms of water, in terms of landfill or whatever it is there, and we are committed to work towards it. And that's one of the important factor. Not just running electric vehicles alone is our motive. Our motive is to achieve net zero in anything what we do.